Is Patrick Davis. I'm a carpenter, designer, and artist in Los Angeles. I'm 58. My mom died 10 months ago, and my sisters performed a fairly run of the mill inheritance hijacking while they were doing hospice care. They had my mother sign all her possessions over to them and had me effectively written out of the estate. My sister took a personal protection order against me in Michigan, like a domestic violence protection order, which does not allow me to talk about her on Facebook. I had to respond to the hearing, and her attorney, the woman who engineered the inheritance heist, I got to cross examine because they brought up the estate. You can hear some anger and defensiveness and some of the highly illogical leaps of faith you would have to make to think that a woman with 5 weeks to live would bring a strange woman into her home to have her estate plans, what did they say, adjusted. And my mother was a lawyer on Cape Cod and did not know this woman because no friend of my mother's would railroad her. It was my sisters who found her and foisted her upon my mother. So here's some of the testimony. It's audio
How
only.
confident were you that the daughters and hospice care workers of a terminally ill woman did not use their influence to get estate plans custom made for their desires and not your clients?
Extremely confident. I would not execute documents. I've been doing this for a very long time.
Two hospice care workers, while my mother, their victim, is sitting there, and Lisa gets dictated a custom made will to their liking. Nothing to see here. We'll move on.
In the trust, my sisters are given custodianship of the home for 5 years, correct?
Objection.
What's your objection?
My objection is that the terms of the estate.
Lisa pretends she doesn't understand the question. My sister objects, and basically, my sisters own the home for 5 years and can borrow against it until I have to take them to court to get my share, which could be completely liquidated. It was a fancy way of screwing me out of $333,000.
You took an adversarial relationship with me and represented my sisters only. And I had good reason to question that. Did my mother give you instructions to exclude me from the estate planning?
I take issue with everything in that question because it's...
Can you answer the question whether or not the party's mother gave you specific instructions to exclude Mr. Davis from any communications regarding planning?
Mr. Davis was not my client.
Very well.
Your client's Christie Peterson. Upon her death, aren't you supposed to explain the estate to the beneficiaries?
Objection.
No.
Hold on a second. Overrule the objection. What's your obligation upon her death as it may relate to Ms. Lang, her sister, or Mr. Davis? What's your obligation?
As I explained in emails that I would be more than happy to provide the court, more than happy to send them like almost immediately. I just have to dig them out. My obligation first is to determine whether I'm even engaged.
Lisa is saying, I think, that she should be helpful. It's a bit of a word salad. And towards me, but her main obligation is towards my sisters, who are now the executors. But they didn't say that for 13 weeks. They played hot potato. But she should have explained something to me, and she's saying she should. But as I will illustrate in a moment, she basically told me, a beneficiary of the mother that was writing the trust, to fuck off because I was always the enemy of the.
And then, once I'm engaged, to work with my clients, who will be the fiduciaries of the estate, to begin the administration, which takes some time to determine whether there's a probate, to determine value issues, things like that, and to send notices whenever required to interested parties, whether they are an heir at law or a beneficiary of an instrument. And in the course of that communication, as I indicated in communications to you, Patrick, I do take very seriously
Her previous word salad was about how she was supposed to be helpful to the 3 beneficiaries, 2 of whom were sitting there while the trust was written and crossed out and had me taken out of it. The one person who was not in the loop was me. 17 days later, she tells me to fuck off and never said, "I'm sorry about your loss." Then the referee and my sister's hometown judge comes in and stops the fight.
That means that if an individual has questions about their own status or their own rights, that's beyond what I can provide information. I can't provide each person who's interested in the estate substantive guidance.
Each person, you had
So
3.
it's a balance.
Well, hold on a second. Are you done, Ms. Sherman?
I was just going to conclude saying it's a balance in terms of certainly legal notifications and legal requirements of notices to be given. And I do very much try to work with families to make sure that interested parties understand things or unnecessary arguments about things just because people don't understand. And I very much tried to explain that to you, Patrick. And as I said, if the court would like copies of my correspondence to you, I would be happy to provide that.
Lisa's a very experienced lawyer for 30 years, and she knows she's not going to have to give any more documentation on this one-time hearing. So she's saying she's hired to also be helpful towards me. Let's see how that panned out.
Any other questions, Mr. Davis?
Yes. I'm going to read a statement I got from Ms. Sherman on June 22nd. This is 17 days after my mother's.
Well, hold on a second. Is there going to be a question?
Yes, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Patrick. I have a meeting scheduled next week about this matter, and I expect I will be formally engaged at that time. By the way, I was not sent any information for 13 weeks. I'm not sure on what authority you are basing your demands, but I can tell you that your demands, which started a day or 2 after your mother passed away, are unfortunate at best. Miss Sherman, I had just lost my... Yes, is that your email?
Hold on a second. Mr. Davis, what is your question?
My question is, did you send that?
Your Honor,
Sherman?
there's more to that. If he's going to read a portion of it, there's more to that.
I can read the rest.
Well, hold on a second. I appreciate that there's more to the email and that you may be reading it out of context, but you're admitting that you at least wrote that portion of the email. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, go ahead. You have another question?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes. You've been doing estate planning for 19 years. You never said, "My condolences, I'm sorry about your mother's passing." Is that correct?
I'm going to find that to be irrelevant. We're moving down a path whether or not this particular witness expressed condolences.
Well, my sister's hometown ref and the court she works at stopped the fight. And next up is my sister's testimony. You're going to hear how they campaigned for me to get a greater share of the inheritance out of the goodness of their hearts. Stay tuned.
Zoom to Zoom. So you got to keep that voice up.
Okay, sorry. I was contacted by friends of Christie Peterson. One of them is a former colleague of mine who's a judge now, and they indicated that Christie was ill, very ill, and was asking them to assist her in finding someone who could help update her estate plan. It was maybe, I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was maybe a day or 2 after I got that call that I made arrangements to go meet Christie. And when I met Christie, I met her 2 daughters who were staying with her at the time. I believe they were staying there. I'm not even certain